It is midnight in Washington, 9 in Sochi, and 2 p.m. on a Wednesday afternoon here in Seoul. I'm Moon Gun-young. Let's get a check of the main stories we're following at this hour. Officials from South and North Korea are meeting at the inter-Korean border on this Wednesday for their highest level talks in years, marking a potential upswing in cooperation. Now, this ahead of a reunion for families divided by the Korean War set for next week. Redefining the outer limits of possibility in her sport. That's what Korean speed skater Lee Sang-hwa did in Sochi as she lived up the hype as the overwhelming favorite in the women's 500-meter event, zipping around the big oval with the two fastest runs to win her second straight Olympic gold. And the U.S. Fed is on track to keep reducing its stimulus even though the labor market recovery is far from complete. That is, according to Janet Yellen, fresh from taking the helm of the Federal Reserve. Now, we'll have those stories and more, but first we're going to begin with a fresh scent of diplomacy between the two Koreas. Senior officials from South and North Korea are locked in high-level talks right now at the South Korean side of the truce village of Panmunjom. The meeting, the first between the North and South in several years, comes a matter of days ahead of a round of reunions for families separated since the Korean War. Now, for more details and the latest, let's go live to our correspondent Hwang Sang-hee at Seoul's Unification Ministry. Sang-hee, so give us the latest.
Good afternoon, Kanyang. The afternoon session is expected to begin at around 2 p.m. Korea time, which is about now. So the officials should be returning from their lunch break as we speak. Now, the talks are being held at the South Korean side of the truce village of Panmunjom, and it began around 10 a.m. Korea time. Now, Kim Jong-un, South Korea's chief delegate, told reporters as he left for the meeting that he would engage in the talks with an open attitude to study an opportunity to ring in a new era on the Korean peninsula. South Korea's 5-member delegation is composed of officials from the Presidential Office of Cheongwade, the Unification Ministry, and the Defense Ministry. The North Korean delegation is led by Won Dong-yeon, deputy head of the United Front Department of the ruling Workers' Party of Korea, with officials from the National Defense Commission, the military, and the Committee for the Peaceful Reunification of Korea. The meeting was proposed by North Korea last Saturday, and the two sides will be discussing pressing inter-Korean issues. Kanyang?
Now, Sang-hee, we have been hearing leading up to this meeting that there were no specific agendas set aside to be discussed at the talks today. Now, what are we expecting to have been brought up today?
Kanyang, it's very rare to see the two Koreas hold talks without setting a fixed agenda. But South Korea's chief delegate told reporters this morning that the Seoul will be looking to ensure that the family reunions take place as planned. As you know, the Koreas are scheduled to resume the reunions from February 20th to the 25th, and if held, it will be the first such event in more than 3 years. However, the reunion event won't be North Korea's top priority at today's meeting. Experts say Pyongyang will be seeking to stop the upcoming joint military exercises between Seoul and Washington, which is scheduled to begin at the end of this month. South Korea and the U.S. say the drills are defensive in nature, but the North views them as a practice for war and has repeatedly called for the exercises to be canceled. North Korea had earlier threatened to reconsider its agreement to hold the family reunions should the joint military exercises take place as planned. There is also speculation that the two sides may not reach an agreement today, but rather set a date for additional talks down the road. Kanyang?
All right, thank you, Sang-hee, and I'm sure you will keep us updated throughout the day. That was our Unification Ministry correspondent Hwang Sang-hee with the latest on the first high-level talks between the two Koreas in 7 years. So the two Koreas are carrying out their highest level government dialogue in years, and this meeting, whether it produces a fruitful outcome or not, will still give senior South Korean officials a rare opportunity to gauge whether the North policies are shifting under its new leader, Kim Jong-un. For a closer look into what we can read into today's meeting, we have live on the line Dr. Bong Young-sik, Senior Research Fellow at the Asan Institute for Policy Studies. Dr. Bong, thank you for joining us.
It's my pleasure to know that some people are interested in this other than Sochi Olympic Games.
All right, very well. Now, today's talks are the highest level talks between the two Koreas in years, although there was one scheduled in June last year until the North called it off last minute, of course. Now, some say today's meeting, it was first suggested by the North, could be viewed as a potential signal that Pyongyang wants better ties and a resumption of lucrative cooperative projects. Now, your take on that?
I'm inclined to agree with your assertion that this can be seen as a sign that Pyongyang wants better ties and cooperation with Seoul this time. Another question you may be interested in posing is why Pyongyang extends a hand for dialogue this particular time. I would pose three possible motivations. First one is the purge of Jang Song-thaek last year, which opened up the leeway and autonomy of Kim Jong-un regime. Since it has kept his house in order, now Kim Jong-un can afford looking outside to engage with the South. And there's a less diverse voice within the power circle. So the decision-making to push ahead the inter-Korean dialogue must have been more streamlined and homogeneous. And the second motivation would be desperate economic conditions inside the North. So resuming cooperation with the South must have been very essential. And third is this is another tactical shift. Pyongyang simply lacks good options to influence the Park Geun-hye government. Let's recall what Pyongyang did this time last year, 2013. It declared that the armistice agreement as null and void, and Korean Peninsula just entered a state of war. It kicked out the South Korean companies from the Kaesong Industrial Complex and actually launched the ICBM and conducted the third nuclear test. Now, all these options are not readily available to the Kim Jong-un regime, and they are subject to what is called the diminishing effect. They can't really shock and intimidate South Korean government and its people as they did the first time. So all these motivations should be behind the decision that Pyongyang made to reach out Seoul for dialogue.
Right, there are a number of speculations that we can make about their motivation. Now, Dr. Bong, North Korea specifically asked for someone from South Korea's presidential office to attend the meeting today. Now, could this give us some insight into what may be discussed between the two sides?
Well, it is too early to pinpoint what specific agenda will be primarily discussed at the first meeting. I think the primary motivation for Pyongyang to request the central figures in the Blue House to attend the meeting is to demonstrate that Pyongyang is serious in making this work, and it demands a reciprocation by the South. There are some speculation whether this is a stepping stone to potentially the third inter-Korean summit between Kim Jong-un and Park Geun-hye, but I would say that it is too early to connect the first meeting and the eventual, potential inter-Korean summit.
Now, the meeting today comes just a matter of days before the scheduled reunions for families separated by the Korean War. Now, how do you expect today's meeting to impact that?
I would expect that it will make a very positive influence on the upcoming family reunion, because both sides seems to have a very strong political will to make it a success. Because the family reunion is kind of a lowest hanging fruit for both sides to demonstrate their commitment to improve inter-Korean relations. For North Korea, the family reunion is posing very little political cost. It's in small scale, and it's going to happen in Mountain Kumgang area, far away from Pyongyang. But it has a very high upside to help change the current perception of the Kim Jong-un government amongst South Korean people. And after the family reunion, the North Korean government may demand South Korea should turn the favor, like some changes of the joint military exercise between South Korea and the United States, or demand the South Korean media to stop critical media coverage of the supreme leader. And for South Korea, the Park Geun-hye government needs to make it a success as a touchstone of the trust politics. According to the Asan Institute's recent public opinion, in response to the question, what do you think as the clear signal that Park Geun-hye's North Korea policy has been successful, 50%, almost half of the South Korean public, indicates two things. One is a resumption of the Kaesong Industrial Complex, which already took place, and a successful family reunion event. So if Park Geun-hye government can, fill these two checkpoints of the list of things to do in order to demonstrate the public that its North Korean policy has been working and successful, then it has all political reasons to make it happen in successful fashion this time.
Well, for better or worse, we don't know yet, but there has definitely been a rekindling of cross-border dynamism on the Korean Peninsula, and we'll definitely be keeping a close eye on that. Dr. Bong Young-sik, Senior Research Fellow at the Asan Institute for Policy Studies, thank you for speaking with us this afternoon.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Meanwhile, the U.S. Defense Intelligence Agency says North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has consolidated his power by replacing older high-ranking personnel in the regime and military with a younger generation of officials. This, according to a report released by Defense Intelligence Agency Director Michael Flynn, in which he also says key posts have been assigned to people very close to the North Korean leader. The report also mentions the recent execution of Kim's uncle Jang Song-thaek, emphasizing the move shows Kim is not willing to tolerate defiance in any form. Flynn and Director of National Intelligence James Clapper spoke about global threats to a Senate panel on Tuesday, with both saying North Korea is a threat to U.S. national security. Well, over in Sochi, Team Korea had been having a quiet Winter Olympics up until last night, Korea time, with no medals to show from 4 days of action. Well, Korea's female speed skater Lee Sang-hwa changed all that with a stunning performance, which saw her win the gold medal in the women's 500 meters in long track speed skating and smashing the Olympic record along the way. The 24-year-old defended her Olympic crown from Vancouver 4 years ago, and as our Shin Se-min reports, on crossing the finish line, the two-time Olympic champion said a desire to defend her team colors had been at the forefront of her mind all throughout the competition.
It was Lee Sang-hwa, one of Korea's leading hopes in Sochi, that broke Korea's medal dug at this year's Olympics. Skating in the women's 500-meter event, Lee clocked a combined 74.70 seconds with her two races, setting a new Olympic record in the process. She beat second-place Russian Olga Fakulina by 0.36 seconds. Setting another Olympic record with her time of 37.28 seconds in her second race, Lee is now one of just 3 skaters to win the 2 consecutive gold medals in the women's 500-meter race, along with Bonnie Blair of the U.S. and Katrina LeMaidon of Canada. She's also the first Asian to win 2 straight gold medals in the event. It's not over yet either. Lee will also go for gold in the 1,000 meters on Thursday evening Korea time. Lee started her career when she was a child, changing to speed skating from short track in the 4th grade. She later joined the national team at the age of 15. Known for her strong will to win, Lee did not skip a day of school while practicing on the ice. Shin Se-min, ARIRANG News.
And continuing with our special coverage of the Sochi Winter Olympics, we're of course joined once again by Lee Tae-ho in the studio. Good afternoon to you, Tae-ho.
Good afternoon.
So we just saw the results of the women's 500-meter speed skating event with the favorite Korea's Lee Sang-hwa living up to the hype. Now, this wasn't unexpected totally, was it?
No, not at all. I mean, I think every single media outlet, whether it's international or national, was putting heavy pressure on Lee Sang-hwa, saying that she was a heavy favorite for the gold medal. Everybody else was just silver and bronze, of course. And I think it wasn't too unexpected for this to happen, because We have to remember that she's perfect 7 for 7, actually 8 for 8 now in every single 500-meter race that she's competed in this year, making her undefeated for the previous year. And this momentum and the pressure all combined to kind of give Lee a boost for this last race. And as we all know, she has a very strong will to win, and I think it kind of motivated her a little bit more. And another spectacular thing about this run was that this is what a lot of people were saying, that the ice at Adler Arena is just average and not too fast compared to other arenas around the world. And a lot of the skaters were clocking subpar, not their average times on this ice. But regardless of all that, we saw what Lee did on this ice. She set the Olympic record and the fastest run in 12 years.
Right, definitely so. And, you know, Team Korea, of course, we had been expecting some medals in previous events in men's speed skating and short track as well, but, you know, in vain. I mean, we were disappointed by that, and we'd really like to see the Korean flag be raised and the Korean anthem being played. So when can we expect that?
Well, you know, I stayed up extra late after the competition, wanting to listen to the Korean anthem, of course, and see Lee on the podium, but I was disappointed because all they had was a simple flower ceremony to kind of close the events. The official medal ceremony will be tonight, 1 a.m. Korean local time.
Right, so many of us will be staying up for that, as well as we have another event tonight as well.
Of course.
Now, so Team Korea has its first medal and a gold one too. And we just talked about Empress Lee Sang-hwa, but we have another athlete that's just of royalty.
Of course, Queen Yuna, as she's known around the world, another royal figure on the ice. She left for Sochi this morning from Korea. She's expected to arrive tomorrow, the 13th of February at Sochi. And of course, as soon as she lands, I'm sure all the different media outlets and all eyes will be on her for the Olympics and her arrival. Right,
and she left with two of her junior figure skaters. And I hope that they both do very well too, and take this first-time experience at the Olympics to their advantage and do much better, perform a better performance in Pyeongchang 4 years later.
And I think there's a lot of pressure on the two of them, and this experience with Yuna Kim at the Olympics this time around will be invaluable to them in their practicing and in their preparation for the 2018 games.
And you know, as a champion, Olympic champion of women's figure skating, Kim Yuna-'s performance, every move has been scrutinized by global media outlets and everyone around the world.
And it's so much more pressure because it's not just all eyes in Korea on her, but all eyes from fans of skating around the world that are on her. And there's so much burden and pressure on her. But, you know, she's always been able to handle that pressure with her nerves of steel, of course, and the grace of a champion. So this time, regardless of the pressure, I'm sure she'll be living up to the expectations as well.
Definitely so. And we look forward to her performance on the 20th and 21st of next week, which is now men's half pipe. But now it was, I mean, we saw Korean athletes, playing or riding, and that was definitely a plus for us, but there were disappointments as well.
Yes, of course. Now the heavy favorite for this competition is the face of the snowboarding kind of culture and community for the past decade, Shaun White, and he was the previous two Olympic gold medalist, but this time he failed to medal at all, placing fourth. The Swiss team took home the gold, and a pair of Japanese snowboarders took home the silver and the bronze. And it was kind of a disappointment because he pulled out of the slopestyle snowboarding event just to focus on this halfpipe event. And for this disappointment to happen, I think it shocked a lot of fans around the world. But to be fair, he was nursing a lot of injuries to both his ankles, a jammed wrist, and he had a terrific prelim run too. So it wasn't all disappointment, but not quite what the fans around the world expected.
Right, and the gold medalist from Swiss, was it? Yuri, he actually said that he mastered his 1440 degree move, which is unprecedented, just to look nice and to show it off to his girlfriend, and that won him the gold. So how better could it be?
Well, it's interesting small stories like this that kind of bring alive the Olympics. Not just this, but for the slopestyle snowboarding event, the gold medalist from America, he called his brother 10 minutes before to ask if he should perform this new move that he was trying out, and he landed it got the gold. And I think this is just another case of that. These small stories that come out of the Olympics, and for the gold medal especially, make it all the sweeter to really show the Olympic spirit.
Right, but what mostly caught our eyes was a pair of Korean riders who performed in this event.
That's right. Now, the important thing is this is the first time that Korea actually participated in the halfpipe event, although both competitors, Lee Kwang-gi and Kim Ho-jun, failed to qualify for the finals. Again, this is going to be invaluable experience for them leading up to the 2018 Pyeongchang Olympics, whether they compete or not, because they'll be training junior teammates, and the experience that they gain here, they'll pass on to their newer members, and that'll be very, very helpful.
Right, and Lee Kwang-gi especially, he came in 11th, and the prelims cutoff was the 9th place, and I think the point difference was only about 1.7. So there was a bright future for Lee Kwang-gi, especially because he's so young. I think he's like 19 or around that age. So
well, snowboarders tend to go a little bit later into the years when they perform. Shaun White is closing in on his 30s, I think, as well. And so I think we have a lot to look forward to in snowboarding. There's so much interest in the field here in Korea, and I think we'll be seeing more investment and more effort put into kind of promoting our young athletes in this snowboarding competition especially.
Right. Another sporting event that I've just been open to, or we're opening our eyes to, is curling.
Yes, indeed. And the South Korean curling team has quietly made a name for themselves. They had their first match yesterday as well against our neighboring nation, of course, Japan. They won 12-7. However, they lost their match today against Switzerland 8-6. But they'll be on ice again tonight at 7 p.m. Korean local time, of course. They're currently in 4th place, so there's still a lot of hope for the Korean curling team.
Right, definitely. So, and it's a game that we're just opening our eyes to. So, a lot of potential there as well. Now, tonight there is again a big match for us.
Of course, on ice, the 1,000-meter men's skating competition. We'll see Motebum, of course, try to redeem himself for his 4th-place finish at the 500-meter event. This will be a rough patch, though. We have Shani Davis, the heavy American favorite, and the defending Olympic gold medalist. So it'll be a match to watch tonight, definitely.
And definitely the legendary Lee Kyu-hyuk, 6-time Olympian or Olympic skater, will be there performing riding his last lap of his career. All right, thank you, Taeho, for that, and we look forward to tomorrow with more Olympics news.
All right.
U.S. Federal Reserve Chief Janet Yellen has vowed to support the approach to stimulus tapering that her predecessor Ben Bernanke started to pursue before he stepped down last month. Making her first public comments since taking the helm, Yellen sounded optimistic about the prospects for the U.S. economy. Kim Jong-un reports.
In her first public appearance as Federal Reserve Board Chair on Tuesday, Janet Yellen told Congress that while the labor market recovery still has a way to go despite a drop in unemployment, the Fed will continue to reduce the support it's providing the U.S. economy through monthly bond purchases.
The recovery in the labor market is far from complete. Purchases are not on a preset course, and the committee's decisions about their pace will remain contingent on its outlook for the labor market and inflation, as well as its assessment of the likely efficacy and costs of such purchases.
Analysts say Yellen's testimony signals a continuation of the policies started under her predecessor, Ben Bernanke. Under Bernanke, the Fed bought trillions of dollars worth of bonds to drive long-term borrowing costs lower. In December of last year, it started to scale back its stimulus program. The new Fed chief also noted the recent turbulence in the world's financial markets.
We have been watching closely the recent volatility in global financial markets. Our sense is that at this stage, these developments do not pose a substantial risk to the U.S. economic outlook.
Yellen also assured investors by saying interest rates would remain very low. U.S. markets reacted positively to her comments, with all three main share indexes closing over 1% higher after her remarks. The Dow Jones Industrial Average closed up almost 200 points as investors welcomed Yellen's steady tone. Kim Jong-un, ARIRANG News.
And on those remarks, Seoul shares touched an almost 3-week high in early trading this Wednesday, even after, while better than expected China trade data aided risk appetite. Now, as of 1:30 p.m. Korea time, the benchmark Kospi was up 0.3%, trading at 1938, while the tech-heavy KOSDAQ was up by 0.25%. On the foreign exchange counter, the Korean currency was trading stronger against the greenback at roughly 1,064 won. And that is all from me at this hour. Thank you for watching. I'll be back with more of the day's latest at 4 p.m. Korea time. See you then.